feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Shrimp Tank. I'm your co-host. My other co-host today apparently is getting his sinuses butchered this week, but I'm Ted Jenkin. And every week we like to bring you some of the brightest and best CEOs and entrepreneurs in and around the country. We started this Shrimp Tank some 7-8 years ago, really because a lot of people wanted to learn, how do I get this combination of street smarts and book smarts and basically get my MBA in entrepreneurship? So we started interviewing entrepreneurs. And now 25,000 people a month download this podcast. We have thousands of people that follow us on YouTube to see these videos on entrepreneurs. So Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, or Spotify is where you can get us. What do you want to be listening to the radio for when you're in the car? You're going to hear some shock jock in the morning. That's not going to be able to help your business. The YouTube channel will give you bite-sized nuggets of our entrepreneurs so you can learn about key tips and tricks and things you need to do when you're starting and growing and running a successful business. And when you're thinking about exiting it, talk to us at Exit Stage Left Advisors. We're the guys that help you get the maximum multiples and minimize stress. I'm excited today because we've got a great entrepreneur on today. Mikey C-Roc Ciorrocco. And if you do not follow his Instagram, I was checking out all the stuff on your Instagram. He's got 1.4 million followers, and that ain't easy. It ain't easy to do that. So Mike, I want to thank you for joining us on the program today. I got so much to talk to you about because you're a serial entrepreneur. You've run thriving businesses. You've written accredited, acclaimed books that people are reading across the country and rocket fuel. And I wanted to ask you just first in this, it's just like you got your hands in so much stuff. How should people even view this role of being an entrepreneur today?
I think mission. First of all, Ted, thank you for having me, man. I want to express gratitude because I'm very, very humbled and grateful for the opportunity that I have to speak to people. And so thank you. I think it should be mission driven, like what's the mission? Yeah. And the vehicles that we're like the business that we're starting is our vehicles, and I think a lot of people who identify as entrepreneurs, they also identify as the business that they're running, which is actually their vehicle. And it sets them up for a problem if they ever have a problem in that business, when that thing goes down, they feel like their identity's gone too.
Right.
So I think mission is the most important thing. Mission and values. I talk about this all the time. I coach people on this, that let's identify with our mission and our core values versus the vehicles, which is our businesses.
It's interesting because the entrepreneur has to wear so many hats. And I think I saw a quote from you that said something to the effect of championship leadership is first about leading yourself. And I wonder if you could expand on that because, as an entrepreneur, you are the engine, right? You're the energy. You got to fuel that thing every day. But a lot of people don't know how to lead themselves.
Yeah, so that's one of my core values. I have an acronym, VITALS, and the L in VITALS is leadership starts with me. And I came up with this because in my past companies, I started to notice. Now, by the way, when I say this, I'm not talking about just other people. I'm talking about myself. But I noticed in other people that I worked with, my partners, my leadership team, that they would not hold other people accountable. And I was thinking, like, what is the problem here? Like, we know what we need to do. We know what people are supposed to be doing, what we're checking and how often we're checking them. And we're supposed to touch base with the people because we know if we hold people accountable, it's not only better for the company, it's better for that person. We're building people. And they just refuse to do it. And I studied this and I said, what the heck is the problem? Then I started to realize they're not holding themselves accountable. And so the reason that they're not holding others accountable is because they're not able to hold themselves accountable. And what you refuse to do for yourself, you're not going to do for other people. Then I turned internal and started looking at myself and asked the question, am I holding myself accountable? Because I'm not maybe holding my team, my leadership team, my partners accountable because I may not be. And so I started to do some inner search, building myself, leaned into that, and then made it one of my core values.
When you look at this, I think about these two components of people being self-aware and then being able to self-manage. Do you think a lot of leaders today and entrepreneurs just really aren't that self-aware?
100%. Human beings aren't. Mm-hmm. And one of the exercises I use for this is I always, at the end of the day, I do a quick asset liability check. What thoughts that I have today were assets, what were liabilities, what gave to me and to the mission and what took away from it. What words did I speak? the people that I kept in my environment, the actions that I took, which ones were assets, which ones were liabilities. Now, I don't go really deep each day, but every day I do a quick assessment. That allows me to fix it quicker than waiting a week, a month, a quarter, a year, or not doing it at all, and then finding something that bad happens, and then I'm trying to figure out why that bad thing happened. So the more you assess, the more you can elevate. And so, yeah, I think self-awareness is huge. And I think you do that through, on a daily basis, an assessment check.
Yeah, but most people don't, right? At the end of the day, their assessment check is getting a bourbon and sitting down and watching some Netflix, but they're not doing that every day. A lot of people aren't very self-reflective about their behaviors, yet they want their company to grow faster. And so in your coaching program, you were mentioning this word vitals. Do you walk people through a process to try to help them maximize their own peak performance?
Yeah, 100%. So I've been trained by some of the best, and I had to go through a lot of the stuff to become.
You're in the Grant Cardone program, right? You're a Grant Cardone leader, is that right? Or
no. So there's a licensee program that they had, and I signed up for the licensee program so that I could have access to Grant, the team, and showed my commitment to them for some of the things. So I got a whole story behind that, but Grant wrote the foreword for my book. No, he's never wrote a foreword for a book before. And it was right when he was going on TV as Undercover Billionaire. So the timing was perfect, and it really helped. And so you do some things for access, right? You pay for access. Now, I never sold Grant Cardone programs or anything like that, like the program was designed for, but I did it I had a different intention in mind. But I was around him. I was around a lot of the people around him. I was around a guy named Richard Dolan, who's a performance coach and a money guy for some of the biggest names you've heard of. A guy named Brandon Dawson, who runs Cardone Ventures, just a phenomenal guy and very intelligent when it comes to business. I've been mentored by them from afar at first, Ted. I would immerse myself in their content, and they wouldn't even know that I was studying them.
Right.
And then I'd know so much about them that when I would talk to them, it was easy to build a relationship with them. And to the point now where, if I go in anywhere I see them, we reunite in a good way, and they appreciate this what's the word I'm looking for? The studying. When you study someone, the effort that they put into that.
Well, so, you said something here though that I just want to just digress for a second, because I think it's so important. Like, whether it's time or whether it's money, you use this word of pay for access, but it might be you pay with time for access, or you pay with money. But why is that so big? I do believe what you're saying. It is so big for entrepreneurs because you don't know how that circle of life is going to turn out when you get access to people who are more successful for you, or can open up other doors for you. But a lot of entrepreneurs should be looking at that, no?
Yeah, 100%. It's whatever it takes ethically to get in front of people, around people. At first you can do it from afar, like the books, YouTube videos. I just immersed myself in the content and just got obsessed with becoming something different than I was, because I wasn't where I wanted to be. I hit my 40s and I realized that I was playing too small of a game. I've always been the kind of guy that wants to up level. Got to accomplish something. Right. What's the next level? What's the next level? Because I didn't think the game was big enough that I was playing. And I don't know how much potential. Another one of my core values is no lids, endless potential.
Love that.
And it's the letter I is imagine, no lids, endless potential. I don't know what my potential is. I don't know what your potential is. I don't want to put a cap on it. I want to see how far I could take this thing. So I'm always looking to do that. And to answer your question, when I take people through, when I'm working with them, most people do not know what they want. So if I ask, and I do these calls all the time with people, and I say, what do you want? If I could do this and everything you have that you want, you can have, what is that? Who do you want to be? Like, what do you want to have? Where do you want to do it with? And most people don't know the answer to that. And then when they try to do it, because I'll tell them, write it down every day when you wake up, write it down, write a story about your life the way you want it. And they try it and they're like, I just can't do it. It just doesn't have a lot of detail. I can't really think. It's because it's a muscle.
Right.
You have to work the muscle. And the more you do it, that story starts to manifest itself and become really colorful and detailed. We've been so hammered and inhibited with our imagination from when we were kids that we don't use our imagination anymore. And so we've become almost like zombies. If you look at a lot of people, they're just going through the motions. They're not creating their world around them, their universe, so to speak, but somebody else is creating it for them. If you don't create your own, you're not intentional about creating your world, your environment around you, what you're doing every day, who you spend time with, the actions, the thoughts you have, it gets created by the media. your environment, and the people you spend the most time with. And that's what we see most of the time. So I try to wake people up to that.
You know, it's interesting because you've obviously been in a lot of publications, things like Yahoo Finance had you as a top business leader. I never paid for a dime of PR, and I was doing national TV for CNN and headline news for 10 years. So I know this media game, but how much do you think for an entrepreneur, you know, it's important to be in the media or around media or get quoted? I mean, how much stock do you put in that value for an entrepreneur?
Well, I think it's just about getting known and becoming a celebrity. And I do believe in paying for exposure.
Yeah.
I believe there's a combination of that should happen where you're in the news for whatever reason. You write articles, you push them out, they get picked up. But also, you should pay for access. I said this before, paying for access for mentors, you should pay for access for exposure. Bill Gates did this. A lot of people don't know how many millions Bill Gates paid for to get his name and his company out there, not just in advertising, but for news, what have you. And all celebrity, if you guys are taking notes or you're listening to this, all celebrity is manufactured.
Yeah, no doubt.
And so I believe in it a lot. I think you could have the best product, service. You could be the best. And if you're not celebritizing yourself, nobody knows who you are. This is why I have the hat on for those watching. It's That One. There's a one in there under the T. That One agency. I started this company because I found a formula to celebritize entrepreneurs through podcasting. And when I did that, I figured it out for myself. I said, man, I got to share this with people. I can't keep things to myself. And so we created this agency to start doing that for people because I believe in it so much. And if you do pay for access, like people pay us to get them on podcasts. Okay. The podcast
Which is great
hosts,
for businesses.
Yeah. The podcast hosts don't always charge. Most of them don't charge to have guests on, but they pay for us to do the work, to introduce them, to get their pitch together, all that. Right. But most people that do that do not know how to leverage the attention we get them. So you also have to be able to back it up. Bill Gates was able to back it up when he got attention. I am able to back it up when I get attention. Some people get attention. They just pay for it for vanity, ego purposes, and they can't back it up and they don't get anything out of it.
Look, I completely agree. And I mean, when you're building a business, you know, there's obviously, you know, this challenge of how much money you spend on direct ROI, right? Stuff that generates immediate results. But a lot of owners, don't think about brand and how much business brand can bring in because it's a longer cycle game and they can't see the immediacy of the results.
100%. Brand is so important to build trust, credibility, consistent brand and brand message and image is important because people will see it and you keep showing up. They start to count on you to show up and be there. This is why, Ted, I did 7 to 10 podcasts a week when I first started back in 2019, because I wanted to make sure, one, that I was good and put the reps in, but I also wanted to make sure people saw me everywhere. I wanted to become omnipresent to the people that matter. So absolutely, people need to focus on branding. You know what drives me nuts a lot of times when people will say, you know, we get all of our business from referrals and we don't really spend any money in marketing and branding. And I'm like, well, that means that you're not doing things to your potential. Like, why would you be bragging about that? It drives me nuts.
So what is That One? Basically, people pay a fee. You have access to thousands of high quality podcasts, and then you actually place them onto those podcasts.
Yeah. First of all, That One is a brand. Okay. So first of all,
love it.
You know, I think Jack Canfield was the one I heard it from, where he said, or Mark Victor Hansen, one of them, said that you should develop a logo and a brand that can be placed on multiple industries. And That One, it came to me one day. I was thinking about like having a magazine, creating a magazine that guests could come on, and I could make magazine for podcast guests. And I didn't want to call it Podcast Magazine or something like that. But I was thinking like, That One guest. What was that one guest's name? You remember that one guest? I started thinking That One, and we say That One a lot. So I'm like, I want to use phrases that we say a lot in my brands. So That One came to me, and I'm like, I could put this on a lot of things. That One music, That One film, That One network, That One agency, and That One clothing line. And I just started thinking about, okay, what's the messaging behind That One? That One is not about being the best. That One is the one that stands out. It's a one that stands out. It's one that's unique. And being that one person is somebody that stands in their uniqueness and leans into it and doesn't shy away from it. So the agency itself, one of our niches is that we take entrepreneurs and get them on great podcasts in our network. You know, I've been on over 900 shows in the last 3.5 years. So we have a vast network. My partner Todd came in. He's been booking people on podcasts prior to us partnering together. And when we did that, it just was a perfect match. And now we design packages that fit people's budgets that they should be budgeting into their business to get exposure. And podcasting is the most effective, most effective, efficient way to get known.
Yeah, I know when we did the tank, I had a money management business that I sold a number of years ago, but I wanted to meet very successful, wealthy entrepreneurs. And I thought, I'm not going to go pay a bunch of plate lickers to do a dinner seminar at Ruth Chris Steakhouse. I don't want to go glad hand attorneys and CPAs who never refer you. And I thought if I did a podcast, I bet I could get local entrepreneurs to come into my studio and talk to me. And I was blown away about how fast entrepreneurs would come in and say, wait a minute, I'm going to be on a podcast. And so I started to get to meet the people in Atlanta that I wanted to meet, and I was having fun doing it.
And you become a celebrity in it. The fact that you have a podcast, media and press is so important and powerful. Everybody should take note to this. Like if the country, the government, the powers to be, certain corporations want something done, where do they go? The media.
Yeah.
Podcasting is a form of media.
And do you think, Mike, with podcasting, I've said this on a couple of our podcasts, no matter what people think, I still believe we're probably in the second inning of a 9-inning game when it comes to podcasts. Like, I don't think we're in the 7th inning right now. I think actually, because people's like, well, everybody's got a podcast. Well, first of all, everyone doesn't have a podcast. And the truth is, all media to me is going to become on demand over time. It's just basically like, I'm going to listen or watch whatever I want to watch whenever I want to watch it. Do you think it's headed that direction?
Oh yeah. I just said this yesterday. It's podcasting is in its infancy for sure. But when you're in the circle and you're in the networks of the pod, you feel like everybody's doing it, like you said, but that's just a perception.
So when you coach people, Mike, what do you recommend? Like if somebody's doing I'm just keep this simple, $1 million of sales. Do you think they should have a 10% marketing budget? Should it be, $100,000 a year? Do you have a thought process about when you talk to an entrepreneur and coach them and say, listen, when you're in your budgeting process for 2024, this is kind of how much you need to say, I'm committed to put this into marketing, whatever way that you do it.
Yeah, Ted, that's a case by case basis, because number one, revenue doesn't mean that you're making profit. That everybody's profit margin is different. So it's a case by case basis, industry basic. So I would sit down and talk to the people about their vision and their goals and what they're trying to accomplish. And that number could vary. Truthfully, I mean, I could just throw a number out there and say 10%, right. But there's a rule of thumb that you'd hear out there. But I'd really rather sit down with a person and talk to them and find out what their profit margin is, what their goals are, who's the face of the company, and how they want to go about marketing the company. And if they can live with the branding, the time and consistency it takes to brand your company, or do they feel like they're the type of person that needs ROI right away, or they can't live with the money because they're not going to continuously invest that money if they're the type that need to see ROI. So I hate to not answer that question, but it's just
no. I'm curious to know, and for our audience, you just crushed it on Instagram. I personally like the way that the content is out and the consistency of the fonts, the colors, the way that you're doing it. How would you coach somebody now who, let's say they're at 1,000 followers and they're not going to get to 1 million, but they're thinking they want to get to 10,000? Are there things that they should be doing now besides hiring you, of course, which they probably should, but because you got to pay for access. You're right. It's hard to build followers on a bunch of these platforms.
Yeah. So first of all, if you're talking about the brand itself, I want to make sure that when I'm going into building a brand is like, how do I want people that matter to my company? All people matter, but I'm talking about the people that matter to my company, my ideal customer. How do I want them to feel when they experience C-Roc, that brand, right? How do I want them to feel when they experience that one? Do I want to create a movement around it? Do I want to create it? Is it a controversial brand where I want people to be, split down the middle on it? I ask these questions, and then as we're developing the brand and we get that feeling that we want to have, we develop things leading into, we basically reverse engineer into making sure that people get that feeling, right? We try to look at it from a 30,000 foot view. As far as Instagram goes, any platform that you decide that fits you the best, you need to lean into it and commit, number one. Because if you're not committed to it and lean into it, you're not going to get the results. And you need to understand the games that are played on those platforms. So I hate to break the news to everyone, but 50% of Kim Kardashian on Instagram, her followers, they're not organic. 50%, pretty much 50% of everybody's following that is anybody, they're not organic, guys. It's just the way it is. I don't want to share people's secrets, but that's a rule of Instagram, for example, but most platforms, that a lot of the bigger followings were manufactured. I said this earlier in the show. Celebrity is manufactured. And so when you understand those rules, you can decide, yes, I'm going to play those rules. I'm going to play by those rules and I'm going to compete with those people. Or I'm not going to play by those rules and I'm not going to compete with those people. You're not going to win a game when other people are playing a game that you don't even know is being played and you're not willing to play by the rules. So some people will complain about that. Some people will say, oh, they bought their followers, this and that. And then they'll sit with their small audience and not get anything out of it. Others will figure out the game, understand the rules, and then understand the power of creating a brand, because Instagram is a brand place where you're creating your brand, and a perception matters, but you must back it up. I said this earlier. So when I started my Instagram, I used promotions to start building it. I built to 10,000 on my own or something. I started using promotions and then organic reach outs. Okay. When somebody came to my Instagram, if I DM them to say, hey, come on my show, I would love to have you on my show to interview you, they're going to go to my Instagram account. Yeah. I know who I am. I know the power that I have. I know the abilities that I have, but my Instagram doesn't show it. There's a disconnect there. There's a misalignment there. So then I stay the best kept secret. That's not okay with me. So I do what I got to do to manufacture celebrity, spin it up. Then people see that. Then it opens a door for them to talk to me. Once I talk to them, I kill it because I've built myself that way to make sure that I'm able to do that. So for me, it's opened up a lot of doors. I have to take advantage of the doors when they're open. And I just want everybody to understand that sometimes you get frustrated that you're not getting the following that you want. People aren't engaging in your posts. You just don't know the rules to the game. And you're comparing yourself to people that are playing something totally, they're on a different planet than you with the game that they're playing.
So I know you write about this in the book, Rocket Fuel, and just talking about how you convert, setbacks in general. And so all entrepreneurs have the peaks and all entrepreneurs go through the valleys, right? It's the way that we learn. Our head goes up against a brick wall, it's bleeding, and we get back up and we figure it out again. What's your advice to the entrepreneurs right now who they're in the valley, right? They're like, shit, sales are down. I got an employee that quit on me. Another employee was having sex in the office with another employee. I got 82 problems, because I do think you've got to be really tough to be an entrepreneur. Like you have to be able to withstand all that gale force winds. How do you talk about it, with clients that you coach?
All that's happened to me, by the way. Everything you just said has happened to me. I mean, really, I've had it happen. So number one, you're not alone. Everybody that you're seeing out there has been through something or is going through something, and they don't even show it right now. Okay. And so it's just a matter of, for me, interviewing over 500, 600 some people now, I see that the common thread to the success is persistence, perseverance. And the journey to success is most of the time invisible. People don't get to see the behind the scenes. So then when they go through it themselves,
right,
and they look out at everybody else is all hunky-dory, they feel alone and isolated. I just want people to know you're not alone. You're not isolated. Right now, me personally, I was in the mortgage space, Ted, for 17 years, real estate and mortgages. I built two times from scratch, 8-figure businesses. First time took me 7 years. It crumbled because I didn't understand culture, alignment, values. I was just chasing production and would put up with other bullcrap, and I didn't hold anybody to any standards. It came crumbling down because the foundation wasn't there. 2 years later, we built it back. But 4 years ago, I decided this ain't for me, man. Like I don't like the commoditization of the mortgage industry. Everybody's raced to the bottom with rates. Nobody can make money then. it's competing against, and you got real estate agents being paid off to send business over. You're not allowed to do that, but some people, it's the same thing as the Instagram game. There's a game being played. If you're not playing that game, you can't compete. And I was just done with it. Now I made money in it, but it didn't make me happy to go home to my family. I was miserable. So I decided 4 years ago that I had to figure out something. I had to get known. I had to get known, because if I got known, I knew opportunities would come, and I wasn't sure where I could make the money that I was making. And I was making good money, which I never thought that I could make that kind of money before. Honestly, growing up, I thought I was going to go to college, get a job, make 6 figures, and be good with it. Never dreamed that I could make millions. I just didn't. I don't know why. And so when I started getting a taste of it, then I didn't think it was possible anywhere else. So I felt caged up in that industry. You're never caged up. First of all, you may feel it. There's always opportunity. There's so much money out there. There's so many opportunities.
So many. And
so I started to realize that. I started to travel, being around my mentors, right? I started this agency a year and a half ago as a kind of an exit strategy. It was a side hustle while I was in the mortgage business. This started to take off a little bit. And April of this year, the rates started going up through the mortgage business. Everybody started to hurt in the mortgage industry. I said, now's the time. There's no perfect time, right? Now's the time. And I wasn't making the money that I'm used to. My net worth took a big hit. And this is another thing for all entrepreneurs. Sometimes you have to take a hit in your net worth, which hits you here sometimes.
It does.
To make a move that's going to take you way higher than when you were before. And I still, every day I wake up, I'm like, what did I do? What am I doing? I talk to myself a lot, Ted. I don't know about you. Like, what am I doing?
Nobody else will listen sometimes.
Selling off assets to create runway for yourself, to do something amazing. And that amazing thing may or may not happen. And you got a family. I got 2 kids and a wife. And it's like my pride, my ego, like if I let it takes a hit. So I'm an honest guy, transparent guy. Right now for me, that one agency is a startup. We're having it's a successful company already, but it's not nowhere near the money I was making before. Yeah. And sometimes I question it. Is this the vehicle? Is this the right vehicle to take me where I want to go? Or is it just a bridge?
Well, I think what you're talking about is important about selling off assets, because I always think about it as I never want to settle for good in place of what's best. And the challenge is it doesn't go like this. Like, you actually have to get down into another valley to get to the bigger hill. And that's really hard sometimes, because you might say, well, now I'm worth $5 million or $10 million, but I got to put $2 million into this to take the risk to get to the bigger hill. And or sometimes you just lose it because you F up a business, and it
makes you sick to your stomach.
It makes you sick. But you said somewhere, I thought on one of your podcasts, that sometimes for an entrepreneur, it's good to be stubborn. And I really like that, because I thought I heard you say that in there. And when would you recommend for an entrepreneur to be stubborn? Because I think you're right. Sometimes you do have to be stubborn.
Well, there's a lot of words in the English language that people use the wrong way, and they put connotation on them that really don't belong. Quitting is one. Stubborn is another.
Yeah.
Those words are not negative.
Right.
And I hate to see people talk about not quitting. Do not be a quitter. It's quitting. Guys, quitting is not a bad thing. It's not a good thing either. It's what you quit that's good or bad.
That's right.
Stubborn is the same way. What are you stubborn about? Are you stubborn about always having to be right? Or are you stubborn about, hey, my mission is this. I'm going to be stubborn going towards my mission. That's the thing, is what is it on is what matters. So people a lot of times mix up the English language. And it holds them back, actually.
I agree with you. The word I always think about that I would tell people is manipulation, because manipulation's always has a connotation of it being a negative, bad word. But any leader that is going to be successful has to get people, they have to get them lined up to get to the same. So you can manipulate people positively. I always say it's only bad if you have malintent. If you're trying to manipulate people to basically take them bad somewhere, then you're a bad person. But if you're manipulating people that could help them build their career, their money, their finances, maybe have equity in your company, you're doing the best thing in the world by getting people's brains trained to do something. That's what Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone and people they've been able to manipulate people's brains, so to speak, to help them achieve more performance.
Yeah. So again, it's very important, because when you make a decision about a word, this is some deep stuff. Okay. You make a decision about a word because you had an experience with a word. that ruins that word going forward. That word does not benefit you later on. So when somebody's communicating, which communication is the cause of all problems and the solution to all problems, taking notes, you might want to write that part down.
That's a good one.
If your communication is so important, words matter. And if you've made a decision about a word and then going forward, somebody's communicating to you about the word quit, and you don't quit something that is bad for you, or you're going in the wrong direction, you're like, I can't quit now. I'm not allowed to quit. That holds you back. So I took a course on how to learn and how to study. And that taught me to look up words and really understand the definition of words, even words I think I understand.
Yeah.
And it's changed everything for me.
I want to ask you something and take a fork in the road here, because I'm 54, and I as an entrepreneur now, I feel like some entrepreneurs that I'm around are getting in heavy into this world of I'm just going to call it biohacking. And, you know, I feel like it's coming up more and more, Mike, in conversations I'm in with people like, hey man, you doing cryo, ice plunge, you doing red light therapy, what's your workouts look like? Like, on the other side of all the intellectual, emotional stuff, do you talk to entrepreneurs about fitness or health? Because you seem like you're very fit and like you stay in shape. And I just think, because you could have all the wealth in the world, but if you don't have your health, it don't mean shit. It doesn't mean anything. So it's like, do you talk to entrepreneurs about that? About how to, because you seem like a high energy guy, and it's like how to keep that energy high. But it's part of my world. I do it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. When I had our first child, I had sympathy weight, and I ballooned up. I actually, you see some pictures of me back in the day. I had a fat suit on, man. It's like you couldn't even see where my neck and head connected. And it was bad. I didn't even know I was that fat and out of shape. And I went into the gym one time with some buddies, and they were like, hey, let's do back. You know, and I was a football player in college, and I was used to working out, but I hadn't worked out in a long time. I was eating like crap, drinking. I couldn't do a pull-up, or maybe I got one, and it was so hard, and I was like blown away, astonished by it. And when I'd go up steps, I'd get out of breath, and I'm like, what in the heck? I was like late 20s. I was 29 when I had my son. So I was like 29, 31, somewhere in that range. And I was so pissed at myself. So what I did was I started doing one pull-up, then I would do two the next day, two again, lead up to three. Now, I mean, it's the other day I'm on the beach, and they have a pull-up bar in Ocean City, and all these kids were on the pull-up bar, and I was over with the family and about 50 yards away. And I said, hey, Jen, my wife, I said, hey, I'm going to go hustle these guys. Watch. So I went over there and I said, hey fellas, what is this thing? They're like, it's a pull-up bar. And I was like, what do you do on it? They're like, you pull yourself up. I said, well, how do you hold your hands? I was playing dumb, obviously. How do you hold your hands? They're like, oh, you can do it out here. It's harder like this. I said, well, what's the record? And they were like 12. I said, okay, well, how many do you think I can get? What's the over under on how many I can get? And they were like 5, 7. I'm like, really? I don't know. Let me see. Let me try. And I just did it. I got like 15 and I stopped. I could have got 20, but I worked up to that as my point. But it was just like a little funny thing because
funny.
You know, like messing with the kids out there. But you know, I worked at it. So it's important. Yeah, it's important for your self-esteem. It's important for your confidence. It's important for your longevity. It's important for your energy levels. It's important for your family, your mood, your emotions, testosterone for men. Like, come on. Like, why wouldn't you focus on that part? You know, all the stuff that goes into it. It has to be a topic of conversation. Now, I have people around me in my environment, and when they're not in shape and they're not doing things, I'm the kind of guy, that'll say something.
You'll get on them.
Because one thing in my head, and most people will be like, wow, they might get resentful of me and they may leave and not want to be in my environment.
Yeah.
Right. And this happened to me since I was a kid, Ted. I grew up around a lot of broken people. Okay. And as a kid, I never had a problem speaking up and saying something because they were buying their BS story that they would tell themselves. And I had to be cool if they resented me and didn't want to be around me. Because here's the thing. If you allow people in your environment that aren't taking care of themselves, you will start to not take care of yourself. Totally, and so I know that. So I have to be good with them leaving because it's best for me. And it's best for them for me to get on their ass. So I'll say something. Hey, what are you doing about this right now? What do you mean? Well, doesn't seem like you're taking care of yourself. It's not judgment. I'm just looking out for you. You got a family, you got kids. Like, what are you doing? And I get them to ask questions to themselves so that it either sinks in or they don't want to be around me because I'm so damn annoying about it.
What's the one entrepreneur that you've been around that you're like, I don't want to be around that entrepreneur again? Have you ever been around one that you're just like, they just sucked?
Nobody's coming to mind right away.
What about the best one? What's the best one that you've ever been around?
Well, I mean, you know, I've been around a lot of great ones. But one particular guy, I mean, I gotta say, like Grant Cardone, one thing about Grant, besides being known and all this, what he does and the loud stuff he does, he always up levels. So like a lot of times you get to a mentor and you like outgrow a mentor. But one thing about him is he always up levels. He's always trying to up level. Now, some people don't like him because he's so brash and whatever other reasons and all that. I look past all the bad stuff that anybody could like pick out because we all have bad stuff. I look at the good stuff and it always up levels. And I like that. And I like the authenticity of people. I like people when they're real. Like if you're an asshole and you are more about yourself than anybody else,
right?
Lean into it. That's what that one's all about, is lean into it. Don't try to pretend you're something that you're not. Just lean into it. And then what will happen is the people that are around you will be the people that like that. Right. And the people that leave will be the people that would hold you back from being authentically you. So yeah, that's what I was saying.
Hey man, well, this has been awesome. This is for our audience. I mean, this is what we love. We love talking to entrepreneurs that talk real talk about entrepreneurship and leadership. For people that are listening today that want to use that one agency, which I think is great. You're trying to get your business growing, getting all that access to podcasts and being on them is big. How can they learn more about the agency? Where can they pick up the book Rocket Fuel, or hire you as a coach to show them how to grow their business?
Yeah. So the number one agency, that one agency.com. You can go check that out there. And then Instagram's the best way to get a hold of me. I answer all my DMs. I DM a lot. Matter of fact, I'm getting ready to put a program out on how to build network through DM and what to say on the calls and how to lead people to a call and what software to use. We have a patented software, that one chat, that we use to DM people and keep it organized, not spamming people. So DM me on Instagram at Mikey C-Roc, MIKEYCROC.
Well, man, I appreciate you coming on the show today. I know that you've done 900 of these, so hopefully we weren't boring for you today. I love the conversation. I really did, man. And congrats on all your success. Go to thatoneagency.com, pick up Mikey's book, Rocket Fuel, and maybe you think about your own nickname, maybe C-Roc or whatever it may be, and but the whole thing of it is that Mikey talked about today is get memorable. He's right. Celebrity is manufactured. When I did it, I went on CNN for 10 years in a row. I got there, and then people start to notice you and other doors open up. But I'll tell our audience what Mikey really talked about today is you got to take some damn risk. You're on the couch today. You're worried about going broke. You're worried about what your IRA is going to look like. You can't worry about that shit. You got to put money in the business and believe that you're the biggest asset, that you're going to make that happen. And that's why all the things you're talking about make a ton of sense today for entrepreneurs, man. It really does. So thank you for taking time out of your day to come on the Shrimp Tank.
Thanks for having me, Ted. Appreciate it, man. You do a great job here.
All right. Well, folks, as always, go to shrimptankpodcast.com if you want to see a replay of all of the broadcasts we've done. We've been able to interview people like Tony Horton from P90X to Sarah Blakely from Spanx and many other entrepreneurs on this program. But what we're all about every week is trying to help you get that MBA in entrepreneurship, get a combination of book smarts and street smarts. And thank you so much for watching this episode of the Shrimp Tank. Thank you.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond.